Cowboys for themselves now have a chance to go 2-0 against the NFC North. They're playing in the midst of a 4-game stretch against the NFC North. You got the Lions, who they just beat. They play the Bears next week, or this coming week, and then they have their bye week. Then they go on the road to take on the Packers and then the Vikings. The Packers free-falling right now after they lost to Washington on Sunday afternoon. So let's start with fact or fiction. Question number 1, Chris Arnold and Alec Medford. The Cowboys, fact or fiction, the Cowboys will go 4-0 against the NFC North. Fact or fiction, the Cowboys will go 4-0 against the NFC North.
I'm going to let Alec take this first because I predicted the Cowboys would win only 8 games before the season started, and they have shut my mouth.
This is tough. You're not throwing me any softballs here, Kevin Gray. I'll say fiction. I think that game in Lambeau is going to be tough.
See, that's not the one I'm worried about anymore. I'm worried about the one in Minnesota now.
Oh, don't worry about that because the game starts at 3 o'clock. Kirk Cousins will turn into a pumpkin by halftime.
Well, here's the thing. The Cowboys can't stop the run. And Dalvin Cook can run the hell out of the football.
Yes, he can. And by the way, he has major success historically against the Cowboys.
Yeah, he's done well against the Cowboys. Yeah, when I looked at the schedule initially, I felt like you, Alec, that the Green Bay Packer game was automatic L. Going to Lambeau, it's Aaron Rodgers. But that team, they got no offense. Special teams is still horrid, as it always is in Green Bay for some reason. And defensively, they're not great right now. So I don't know. There's nothing right now that Green Bay does well that I look at that frightens me. Like, I got one of the best corners in football in Trayvon Diggs. You can go shut down Allen Lazard, go handle that business. If Anthony Brown would get off his soft pillow and start covering people, then, he might be, worth his while against, Green Bay. So I'm not necessarily worried about the Green Bay game, but again, it is Aaron Rodgers. So it's Mike McCarthy, the Mike McCarthy Bowl, and all that,
Let me give you one bit of hope there.
Oh.
Dak Prescott is undefeated at Lambeau. The only time the Cowboys went to Lambeau with Dak Prescott was his rookie year, and that was the game, well, after they lose the Packers, then Romo can take over. Now Jason Garrett didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
Broadus just has me sold on that theory that the desperate team is going to find a way to win eventually, and I'm scared that it's going to be against us.
Well, maybe they'll win a game or two before that game.
Hopefully.
I can see them losing to Green Bay, but it's not because there's anything I'm concerned about.
Right. I hear you.
Yeah, like there's nothing that scares me about Green Bay anymore.
It's the Minnesota game that has some concern for you.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the deal.
The Minnesota game.
Minnesota could wind up losing a couple of games, too. The reason I say this is you couldn't have told Tom Brady he was going to lose to Carolina. You couldn't have told Aaron Rodgers he was going to lose not only to the Giants, Jets, and now the Washington football team. You could have told him that. This is the NFL. Crazy things happen, and therefore, I'm feeling very grateful. I tweeted this out today because, like I said, I told y'all, I thought the Cowboys, because of the way they retooled this entire team in the offseason, they were only going to win about 8 games. They have shown through some adversity that they've got character and chemistry, and that's something that analytics can't account for. So as long as they've got that going for them, anything's possible with this team.
So for the sake of conversation,
I'm going to say fact.
I'm going to say fiction. I think they lose the game in Minnesota because what the Cowboys don't do well on defense, the Minnesota Vikings do extremely well, and that's run the football. But the matchup of that game that's going to be the most fun to watch, Trayvon Diggs versus Justin Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get your popcorn ready for that matchup. Trayvon Diggs has been one of the best shutdown corners in the league. And I'm not just saying that because,
he is.
You go look at the numbers. Trayvon Diggs has been shutting down guys this year, and he's been really, really good in coverage.
Speaking of really, really good, CeeDee Lamb is really, really good in Minnesota himself. In fact, he was in that same draft with Jefferson, and he likes to put on a show, too, to make people remember. Y'all must have forgot because he slid in that draft. And remember that great catch he caught from Cooper Rush in Minnesota last year? CeeDee's going to show up in Minneapolis.
So you're going fiction. Okay, I'm going fiction as well. Chris Arnold, he's going fact.
The fact, Jack.
Okay. Fact or fiction here, Cowboys edition right here on the Get Right with Reggie KG on 105.3 The Fan. Fact or fiction, when it comes to this Dallas Cowboys offense. For the rest of the season, the Dallas Cowboys will average 25 points per game.
Fiction, and let me explain why.
Okay.
Gavin Dawson brought this up on G-Bag Nation. He went through some analytics. The scoring is down around the NFL, but primarily with quarterbacks throwing touchdowns. Quarterbacks are not throwing touchdowns anymore. You know why? Because they've all around the league come up with the Denver Bronco blueprint where they're flooding these secondaries with 7 and 8 guys back. And cornerbacks are better nowadays than they are at any time in NFL history. He compared it to the shift in baseball when all of a sudden they just started shifting. He said now defensive coordinators don't care about the run. You can run all you want. He said run all you want, but we're not giving up any touchdown passes. We're not giving up any long chunk passes. And that's what you're seeing play out. He said, and I was like, listen to this. And he was bringing up the analytics to show it. And he said, they're going to tweak it. But right now, nobody can figure it out. And that's why touchdown passes around the NFL are down. And he also mentioned, look who's leading their divisions across the board as of this week. Quarterbacks who can run and extend plays. Just be aware, they don't care about running underneath anymore. Running game, you can run. Quarterbacks who can run, they'll let you run a little bit, but they're not going to let you throw touchdown passes. So with that being said, the Cowboys are the last team that's going to be scoring over 25 points a game. No, not them.
Just to give you some reference, the Cowboys have scored 25 or more points just once this season. And that was at home, of course, against the Washington Commanders. Alec Medford, the Cowboys will average at least 25 points per game for the rest of this season. Fact or fiction?
I'll go fiction because I think that you're starting to see a new identity offensively with this football team that you saw, thankfully, from, having to play with Cooper Rush. You're seeing a lot grittier games against, not even great defenses, like even against the Lions yesterday. You're just having to lean on that run game a little bit more because, hey, there is that sobering fact that we have an elite defense that will go prevent scoring on the other end if we screw up here. I think you're going to see Dak Prescott not having to press as much as he gets readjusted coming off of this hand injury. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of high-scoring games, maybe a few here and there throughout the rest of the season, but you could see a lot of 14, games where the Cowboys score 14 points, 10 points, and win, just because they know, hey, we don't have to go score here. If we can just hold them back, we'll be all right.
Yeah, I'm going to go fiction on this one as well, although I would love to see them score at least 25 points per game because you get this defense 24 points, you're going to win a lot of football games if you're the Dallas Cowboys. But this offense clearly is still lacking some rhythm, especially in the passing game. It got much better in the second half. Dak was much better in the second half. You saw some of that come to fruition with some of the throws that he was making. But this is a completely different offense than what it was a year ago, and the explosive nature of this offense isn't necessarily there yet. But you can lean on this run game and hope that you can get some of those explosive plays in the run game, Tony Pollard, to continue to help you out as you move forward the rest of the season.
Also, they don't have to score a lot of points. That's why they won't. It's like, why do we have to? We will do what we need to do to win, but we don't have to do a lot of scoring and possibly have more takeaways and turnovers. The other part about it is the bottom line is real simple. The Dallas Cowboys offense is good, but it's not great. That's why I only picked them to win 8 games. I was like, you took away talent. How can they win more games? Well, guess what? Grit. They've reduced their penalties. They've shown that they're tougher. That's what they said after the San Francisco playoff game. They said, we're going to get tougher. Defense leading the way with toughness.
Finally, here on our Cowboys Fact or Fiction on the Get Right with Reggie KG on 105.3 The Fan. The Cowboys, gentlemen, will go 7-1 in their next 8 games. Now, I'm going to give you some context on this, okay?
The one loss is going to be in Minnesota?
Well, you can pick a loss. It doesn't matter where you pick your loss at, but the question being, or the statement being, the Cowboys are going to go 7-1 in the next 8 games. Now, here's the next 8. Chicago here at home, on the road against Green Bay, on the road against Minnesota, at home against the Giants, the Colts, and the Texans, then on the road to Jacksonville before they come back home to take on the Eagles on Christmas Eve. The Cowboys will go 7-1 in that stretch of games. Fact or fiction, gentlemen?
I'm going to say fiction only because the NFL is a war of attrition. You don't know how banged up this Cowboys team is going to get. I hope they don't get banged up. You want them to be healthy, but at the same time, like I said, just look at yesterday's scores. Look at what happened yesterday. You can't totally predict this thing. The Cowboys are 5-2, and be grateful for that, Cowboy fans, instead of nitpicking an 18-point victory. Fiction.
This is a tough one, man.
On paper, they should.
On paper, they should, and that's why I'm going to go fiction, because the NFL is a strange lady, as someone on this station loves to say. So, yeah, I see 3 games you could lose. Do I think you lose all 3? No, being the Vikings, the Eagles, and the Packers. I think you can lose those. I think you lose 2 of them. I don't know which. I think you could lose to the Vikings, and I think you could lose to the Packers in Lambeau.
Wouldn't it be nice if they were 13-4 for the season?
That would be nice.
That would be amazing.
I'm going to say fiction as well, and I'm taking some of that theory there. I think they lose 2 games in that stretch. Now, they could go 7-1 here because you've got 3 straight home games against the Giants, the Colts, who obviously just benched Matt Ryan. That season's finished for them, and the Houston Texans. But then you also go on the road to Jacksonville. The 2 games that I see that you could lose would be those 2 road games at Green Bay and at Minnesota. But after that, you could rattle off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row after that, talking about the Giants, the Colts, the Texans at Jacksonville, and then that revenge game on Christmas Eve against your division rival in Philadelphia. They've got a chance to have a spectacular finish to this season because after the game against the Eagles, you go on the road against the Tennessee Titans, and then you finish up on the road against the Washington Commanders, who probably won't be playing for much of anything by the time you get to the end of the season. So Cowboys got a chance to win double-digit games and to rack up a lot over the next several weeks. And if they can go 3-1 at minimum against the NFC North, you're going to go on a stretch and a run where you're going to have 3 straight home games that you should win and win in convincing fashion over the teams that you play, because the Giants, as good as they've quote-unquote played, they're probably the worst 6-1 team in the NFL right now.
And also remember this. I like the way you broke that 7-1 down, but you know, the last game of the season, these coaches have a tendency of saying, well, we got the division wrapped up and we're going to rest everybody. They do that crap on purpose.
See, but I think the Cowboys will still have something to play for when it comes to being at the top of the NFC by the time they get to week, what do they call it, 18 now?
Yeah, week 18.
So I think they'll still have
I hope that's the case, because I can't stand when they say, we're going to just rest everybody.
Yeah, I think they'll still have something major to play for based on the way that the schedule is starting to fall. But again, this is obviously if everyone stays healthy. And as Alec mentioned, you just know any given Sunday, someone could find a way to beat you